Hi, my name is David Robson, and I'm here to teach you a little bit about backbending. And this is going to be sort of an intro course to backbending. It's backbends in a more beginner phase. And I'm going to use a fairly accessible backbend as the model, and then we're going to dissect it and look at all the different actions that are happening in upward facing dog. An upward facing dog is a good backbend for people that are practicing Ashtanga in particular, or Vinyasa styles of yoga, because it shows up on the jump back Vinyasa, the jump back upward dog, back to downward dog. So if you're doing a Vinyasa style practice, chances are you're doing a lot of upward dog. And I guess the goal of this tutorial is going to be how to optimize that action of going into upward dog, because from my experiences, you can do that pose, sort of get used to it in a way, like you can make the shape of it, but you might not be getting all of the benefit. You might not be working in a way that's going to prepare your body for deeper backbends. But with just a few tweaks, tips, techniques, I think you can turn upward dog into, it's like an opportunity. It's a pose it's a doorway that'll let you go deeper into opening up the front body, practicing the patterns, the techniques that will take you deeper and deeper into backbends in general. My opinion for backbends is that your legs need to be very strong. And I think we want to get the legs to work so that we can relax the bum. We want to relax the glutes so that we can release the sacrum, the pressure in the sacrum. The way that we release the glutes, the easiest way, is by getting the legs to do all the work. The glutes are kind of bullies. They're big muscles, and they like to kind of boss our hips around all the time. So we've got to get all the support we can out of the legs, so that they kind of stand up to the bullies and tell them to back off, to relax. And it's a little bit counterintuitive. If you're doing upward dog, chances are the easiest way for you to do it is to squeeze your bum and press your hips towards the floor. So this is a technique that you take a while to master. And the idea is that you're going to engage your legs only as you release your glutes. A good way to work on this is from a sort of Shalabhasana type position. Shalabhasana means locust pose, and it's a pose that we do in intermediate series. We'll just do a really beginner, sort of modified version of it for now. So if you lie on your stomach and use one elbow to prop your chest up off the floor, and you can feel your hip bones on the floor. Your back, hopefully it doesn't hurt yet. This is a fairly easy position to be in. If you lift your feet up off the floor and then reach back with your other hand, chances are you're going to feel that your glutes are clenched. They're squeezed together. This is the easiest way for you to lift your legs up off the floor, by squeezing the bum and pushing the hips down into the floor. So we're going to try to make it harder. And we're going to try to get the glutes to release, and we're going to make the legs do all the work. So the first thing I'm going to do is push my toes down into the floor. And I'm going to keep my feet maybe hip width apart so that it's kind of like upward dog. My feet are hip width apart. Pinky toes, the baby toes, are on the floor. And I want to get the pinky toes on the floor to start to encourage a little bit of inward rotation with the legs so that the fronts of the thighs face down towards the floor. Bring my awareness down to the front of the thigh. I can feel it pressing into the floor, and I can feel my toes all pressing down. And as I do that, my knees lift off the floor. So the backs of the knees lift towards the ceiling, and I can start to feel the legs engaging. Now, at this point, I should be able to keep my legs engaged with my bum relaxed. But if I start to lift the feet directly up, then the bum is going to start to squeeze again. I'm going to push down through the tops of the toes, lift through the backs of the knees, and then I'm going to try to point the feet and reach the toes towards the back of the mat and feel like a lengthening action from the hips all the way down through the fronts of the legs, through the tops of the feet, through the toes. And I keep going with that lengthening action to lift the feet up off the floor. So I'm reaching back through the toes. And then if I reach back, nice soft bum. So this takes a little while to master. You might have to try it a few different times. You could always get a friend involved. They could come over and poke your bum. You could turn it into a party. But eventually, you should be able to do that every single time. Strengthen your legs and relax your bum. Okay, this is the same action that I'm trying to do in pretty much every back bend, but for our purposes, upward dog. So I'm going to have my feet hip width apart in upward dog, and then I'm going to push the toes down into the floor. I'll do an easy upward dog. I won't really worry about the upper body too much yet. My shoulders over my wrists, my arms straight. And then making sure that the feet are going to point straight back towards the back of the mat. I'm going to try to find my pinky toes on the floor to get that internal rotation. And push down through the toes, lift through the backs of the knees, and start trying to find that same feeling of engagement through the hamstrings and through the quadriceps, really strengthening the legs, like all the tissues pulling towards the bone, hugging the bone of the legs. And I keep reaching back through the toes, and as I reach back, I lift through the backs of the knees. My legs become super engaged. After you learn how to strengthen the legs and relax the glutes, the next step is bandhas. Bandha means lock or fetter, and it's a technique we use a lot in Ashtanga. We use two bandhas, Mula bandha and Uddiyana bandha. Mula means root lock, Uddiyana bandha means lifting up or flying up lock. Mula bandha is about squeezing the anus. This is the hand gesture that accompanies squeezing the anus. And when you squeeze your anus, there's actually a connection between the anus and the tailbone. So if you sit like I'm sitting now, just kneeling with your hips on your heels, and sometimes it's better if you close your eyes when you squeeze your anus. You can turn your attention in. Also, it's not weirdly uncomfortable looking into anybody else's eyes. So you sit here, and now you're going to squeeze the anus, and when you squeeze, you can start to feel your tailbone draw it down towards the floor. Can you feel that? The best way is maybe just to relax it again, and then squeeze. And as you squeeze and the tailbone draws down, you start to lengthen your lower back a little bit. At the same time that you're squeezing the anus and the pelvic floor, you'll start to feel the lower abdomen engaged too, and that's Uddiyana bandha, lifting up, mainly transverse abdominis muscles, these muscles that run laterally here. So as I squeeze the anus, squeeze the pelvic floor, I start to feel my belly pulling in. I want to combine the work of the bandhas with the strength of the legs and soft bum. And activating the bandhas is going to give me lots of support in the lower back, especially around the sacrum. And it's going to keep the sacrum nice and broad. It's not going to crunch together. It's going to help me keep a nice even curve in my lower back this way. So it's all this support in the front of the body as I squeeze through the anus and the pelvic floor, and I pull back on the lower belly. Don't confuse squeezing the bandhas with tilting your pelvis. We don't want to draw the hip bones back when we engage the bandhas. We don't want to go into a posterior tilt with the pelvis. I want to try to keep the front hip bones, the iliac crests, coming forward towards the knees in a back bend. So I want the back to arch. I want the whole pelvis to tilt, but at the same time, I want the bandhas to engage. And you could even activate your legs in this position too. If you press down through the tops of the feet, try to find your pinky toes, maybe squeeze the legs together a little bit, feel the work in the legs, your bum is soft, and then reaching for Mula bandha, Uddiyana bandha, feel your tailbone draw down, hold the strength in the legs, hold the strength in the bandhas, and then start to let your hip bones come forward. Keep letting the hip bones move forward, letting your lower back arch. At the same time, squeeze the legs, press through the feet, pull in on the bandhas. So what I feel when I'm doing all of those actions is I start to lift out of my waist. I start to lengthen the chest up towards the ceiling, and the whole spine starts to extend. That's the feeling that I'm looking for in upward facing dog. So let's try it in upward facing dog. So keep lifting through the backs of your knees, pressing your pinky toes down. Try to find that leg strength. Relax your bum. And then holding the legs nice and strong, start to squeeze the anus, lifting through the pelvic floor, pulling in on your belly, your lower belly, and start to let your front hip bones sink towards the floor. The more the hip bones come down, the more you have to squeeze the bandhas to support your lower back. Strong legs, soft bum, strong bandhas, and hip bones down. So ideally, what's going to happen is you'll start to feel more of a stretch in the front of the hips, maybe in the front of the thighs as well. When I'm doing a back bend, that's what I start to look for. I start to look for a deep stretch in the front of the body. I don't want to feel a lot of squeezing in the back body. But you might still feel a little bit of work in your lower back as you're going into a back bend. Don't let it freak you out. Don't let work in your lower back scare you. Just be aware of sharp pain. If you get anything really local in your spine, any spot that really starts to hurt, that's telling you that you're crunching. But if you just feel the muscles in your back working to bring you into a back bend, no problem. It's part of teaching your back how to do the shape. Pinky toes down, lift the backs of the knees, reach through the toes, keeping the legs strong, releasing the glutes, squeezing the anus, pulling in on the lower belly. Start to bring your hip bones forward and down. Okay, now moving from the navel up, I want to try to get my arms and my upper body to help me deepen the back bend. When my arms are below my shoulders as they are in upward dog, the general rule is that the arms internally rotate and then the shoulders pull back. I want to let the shoulder blades come away from each other instead of towards each other in the back bend, and then sink into the back to help me open up the chest. I'm trying to create openness in the chest so that I can arch the body forward. And I'm going to use my arms and my shoulders to help me find that shape. Okay, so inward rotation of the arms means that the inner elbow joints are going to turn in towards each other. So if you put your hands on the floor shoulder width apart, and then turn your arms in so the inner elbow joints, the eyes of the elbows end up facing each other, that's internal rotation. That's the first step. The second step is to pull the shoulders back. So inward rotation, pressing into the hands, pull the chest through, pull the shoulders back. And if you can imagine it, your legs are pulling your hips back. They're stretching towards the back of the mat. Your arms are pulling your chest forward, away from the hips, and you start to get all this length happening through your spine. That length is what you're going to use to bend back. Let's try it again in upward dog. So I'll go through my checklist. Strong legs, my feet are pointing straight back, pinky toes on the floor, lift the backs of the knees, keeping the legs strong, relax the glutes, bandhas, squeezing the anus, pulling in on the lower belly, start to tip the front hips down towards the floor. Now I'm going to spin my arms in, pressing down through the inner palms, start to pull the shoulders back and try to feel the chest coming forward through the shoulders. Keep pulling, reaching through your legs so your legs are reaching back, pulling with your arms so your chest is coming forward. Feel the length in the spine and start to let the hips sink more. See if you can deepen the sensation of stretch in the front of the body. See if you can take a nice deep breath into your chest here. Push into your hands, straighten the arms, pull yourself through. Your arms are spinning in, shoulders pull back, nice deep inhale. And exhale. And then slowly come back out. You might want to just stretch your back a little bit, pressing yourself back into a child's pose. Let your head come down to the floor for a second and give your spine, give your back muscles a little bit of a break. So the last part of upward dog that we need to talk about is the neck and the head. When I'm lifting my chin up, I want to feel like I'm stretching through the throat. There's no need to press the head back towards the feet. It's more of an action of releasing. The drishti in upward facing dog is the nose. And I find keeping the drishti down helps me contain the bend in the neck. There's a big difference between releasing, stretching through the throat and letting the head come back, or pushing the head back and feeling compression in the back of the neck. You never want to feel compression there when you're doing the pose. Also, the alignment with your arms and shoulders should support the movement of the neck, so that when you relax your neck, your head almost rests on the shoulders. So let's try to put it all together. Pressing down through the pinky toes, lift the backs of the knees. Activate your legs, feel the thighs, the hamstrings are really working. And then relaxing your bum, let the front of the hips start to sink towards the floor as you pull up through the pelvic floor, squeeze the anus, and pull in on your lower belly. Spin your arms in so the inner elbow joints turn towards each other. And then pushing into the hands, pull your shoulders back, pull your chest through, and start to extend through your throat, lifting your chin, and drishti's on your nose. Take a few deep breaths here. So inhale, strong legs reaching back, lengthening through the legs, out through the toes. Exhale, bandhas in, let your front hip bones come forward and down. Inhale, push into the hands, straighten the arms, find the index knuckles of the hands. Exhale, pull your shoulders back, pull your chest through. One more inhale, lengthen through the front of the throat, lifting the chin. And exhale, drishti's on your nose, let your head relax back. And then bring your knees to the floor, push into the hands, pull the belly in, and go back into child's pose one more time. Just take a couple breaths here, letting your back stretch. One final piece of advice I have for you for upward dog is to try to make the movement last for the duration of the breath. So I think because upward dog usually comes after Chaturanga Dandasana in the jump back vinyasa sequence, we tend to rush into upward dog because we can't wait to get out of Chaturanga Dandasana. Better if you can spend more time in the lower half of upward dog so that you can take a full breath in and then use the last half of the movement to draw out the rest of your breath. So I'll show you what I mean. So instead of popping into the full depth and then trying to continue finding breath here where it becomes difficult to breathe, try to slow down on the first half, inhaling, and then use the end of the breath to go deeper into the pose. That way you can take a full breath into the upper body when you're doing the posture, and it becomes much less stressful. You don't get that kind of choking feeling at the end of the movement. Okay, so this has been a really kind of quick and dirty tutorial of upward facing dog, sort of some general back bending rules. And I hope it's been helpful for you. Make sure to check out my other videos to learn more about Ashtanga. Okay, I'm David Robson. Thanks for watching.